But I do think that this is actually really working for him. Like, low-key, like, this is what I fuck with Jack Harlow for. Thank you for the love and the reception on our new live album reaction to Jack Harlow's Jackman. We did the whole live stream with our community yesterday night, and it was absolutely incredible. So if you guys want to check it out, the link is in the description. Baloo, let's dive into this album. What did Jack Harlow do for you on the artist performance, bro? And contrary to maybe what he did on Come Home, the Kids Miss You in 2022.
I think he definitely showed maturity. I feel like this album is in the same vein as something like Confetti or Loose, some of his older projects, in terms of it having that shorter format, in terms of it being more rap-centric. So it was cool to see him take a different approach where instead of giving you some more hype songs, he's getting into a more meditative and introspective space where he's more laid back on a lot of these tracks. And I feel like that does also serve to his detriment on this album, to be honest with you.
In which way?
Because I feel like what we know and love about Jack Harlow, the rapper, is the charisma, is the flair. And I feel like him having that approach of wanting to be super personal and super introspective made him strip that back, and we got kind of a lack of energy and a lack of like great track presence, which that's okay if you're gonna make up for it with like solid lyrics that take the driver's seat. But that didn't seem to be the case all the way throughout the album.
Yes, but I will say this, though. The positive, though, that I do take out of this performance from him is that he was keeping me engaged throughout the entire track list. Like, I didn't necessarily have a problem with retention until you get onto something like Gang, 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 where that's, you know, we'll talk about that more, I think, in the content matters section. But I mean, for the most part, I like that sort of like, you know, Baxter type of Jack Harlow, where like he's getting into that melodic, not that
much melodic,
but like more meditative sort of flow, where you see him trying to pronounce his words out slowly. He's trying to almost talk to you in a certain way. So I think that was achieved throughout the album. But like you said, I think that once you start getting towards the end, it's like, okay, I fuck with it, but was there room for more charisma? Was there room maybe to bring something else to the track list?
You did get it here and there. You know, you look at a song like They Don't Love It. I mean, he's rapping as if he's pressed, like he has that chip on his shoulder, and he comes in with a lot of hunger and passion, some clever flow switches, but that's kind of one of the more rare instances. But I do feel like I have to give him credit on something like Is That It as well, which I wasn't feeling at first.
Yeah, you didn't like it all too much.
I'm like, I don't know how I feel about like this transition from the rapping to the singing, but the more I was listening to it, I'm like, you know what? These melodies actually hit. And just because it's a song that sounds maybe the most similar to something off of Come Home, the Kids Miss You, doesn't mean it isn't good.
Absolutely. But you know what? It kind of reminded me of like a 21C Delta, to be honest with you, where he gets in that vibe where, you know, he's doing the rapping and the slick Rick sort of stuff, where he's like going through these verses, and then boom, like kind of slows it down and takes more of a melodic approach to it, where now like
a la Drake.
Yeah, like that sort of vibe, where he's just changing the tempo from, you know, the slick rapping all the way into like more of that melodic crooning.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you have your good share of like good and bad performances, like we're saying. I mean, you even look at something like No Enhancers, and he provides his own backing vocals. He has the sing-songy hook, which doesn't really hit that hard. But like I said, there's highs and lows in terms of his performance, but overall, he keeps you somewhat engaged, I want to say. I would give him a good rating for the performance.
I would give him a good rating, absolutely. He did a good job on the album, and I think Jack Harlow fans will appreciate that. But let's go into the content matter, because Jack had a lot to say on this album, and I find it interesting because, you know, Jack Harlow doesn't necessarily do too much of that on something like a Come Home, the Kids Miss You, and I completely lost hope after that album, because I'm like, no, this can't be the direction he's going into, even after after his previous releases. You're like, okay, he has potential to actually attack like good lyrical content, and you did get that on the album, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, you did get it, you know, on quite a few songs, and like, if you would have told me that Jack Harlow would have been socially conscious in 2023, I would have told you you're fucking lying to me. But that's what you end up getting on songs like Common Ground, as well as on songs like They Don't Love It, where he raps about wanting to be a pillar in his community and wanting to actually be there and make social change for the oppressed people from Louisville. So it was cool to see him take that approach. I feel like you're also getting a lot of moments where Jack is just getting lost in a cornfield with certain lines on the album. For example, I don't play goalie, but I'm my brother's keeper. Like, that's probably the closest thing you'll get to a double entendre on this thing. You also have lines like, fuck buffing my nails, I'm trying to get buff. Or coming in my girl like I'm sterile. Or I keep saying I'm going to use my phone less, but I should just be phoneless.
I know.
So you have those lines, but then again, you also then come on to songs like Gang, 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 which have deeper subject matter.
But I'll talk about that section, okay?
How do you
and
feel about
and this
that?
is the way that I felt about it. Like, I think the intention was right behind it, and obviously you want to include that type of, content matter where you're getting introspective and you're talking about these traumas that you're going through in your life. It's just the way that it was executed was super short-lived because the verses are only necessarily 9 to 10 lines, and you're like, well, I got no explanation from this, And if you guys go into the content matter, like it is deep content matter, just the execution was lacking on this song, in my opinion. And, that's what I didn't necessarily like about this song is that it could have probably been better if he would have taken maybe a bit more of a runtime with it, developed the verses out and try something new with it. But it really fell flat for me as far as execution on the
to
writing.
me, it was just the abrupt dialogue, like which Marcus, our Marcus, and like the one we used to play Pokemon with. Like it's just super vague storytelling, and it makes the song collapse entirely. To be honest with you, and it seems like he had spent more time sort of rapping about like his disbelief for his friends going down this dark path rather than actually telling the story or kind of trying to give us something meaningful out of it. So super awkward song in my opinion.
But I want to talk about Denver though. Let's go to a high point for me, okay?
Yes.
So Denver was really cool for me off of first listen because it clicked with me right away. I'm going to be honest with you. And him taking you through two different perspectives just in the matter of months of his life is actually really cool. So if you go on to Denver and you look at the way that he actually set up the entrance into his first verse and his second one, it was really well done. So he starts off on the first verse saying, walking past the homeless in a Rolex, just got off stage on the Today Show and I basically felt soulless. And then after that, he was explaining in the second verse, I wrote that first verse in Denver back in September. It's January now and I'm feeling like myself again. So I like to see that character progression and using those small little personal anecdotes to be able to enhance the writing. I really did enjoy that.
I think the perspective is refreshing, but it's just Jack's monotone and sort of stale delivery. It makes it hard to care, to be honest with you. And I feel like a lot of what he's rapping about is cliche, but it's what he's going through. So I have to welcome it. I have to sort of see what he's trying to go with. And I thought it was cool to see also just how much of his insecurities, his fears, his paranoia was actually being displayed throughout this whole album. And I feel like that's where I have to salute him, is really getting that personal, that vulnerable, even on a song like Blame on Me, where he tackles the perspective of a younger brother, an older brother, and a father, and how they mistreat each other and a cycle of abuse. And I thought that was pretty well done. Again, I feel like his sort of way of executing it wasn't the greatest because it doesn't keep you engaged in terms of just his vocal tones and his lack of dynamic range. But again, that was more of a song where it just felt like he was talking to you, and that's okay. But again, another sort of flaw where I feel like there's lacking that rhythmic connection from Jack. Apart from that, you also have, I can't remember the name of the song, but it was that song where like it's a seductive love song and he randomly throws in that line about like his friend beating cancer, and I'm like, this is out of pocket.
Yeah, because the thing is that like, especially with deep content matter, it gets a bit weird for the listener because like you're intrigued off the bat. You're like, wow, okay, like this is incredible, like celebration, and like this is probably gonna be like a storytelling cut. And then what happens is like he's talking about his girlfriend being natural and like his exes, and it's like, like that's not a great way to carry out the rest of the vision of this track on the writing side of things. But is that right? I mean, you mentioned this in the performance. I really did like the writing behind it because this was well executed on. He did what he had to do here. He's talking about now his newcomer fame, but also wanting to take more of a minimalistic approach to his life, just based on like where he's at with things. So I mean, listen, overall, I think the content's good. I think he did a good job on it too.
I think it was good. I could lean towards mid just because I don't like the way it's always being executed, but I think that he did give us enough subject matter and a lot of maturity within his lyrics and his rhymes. So yeah, I think it is good, but I'm not crazy about the writing all the way through. But let's go on to the production now, and this is interesting because it seems like Jack Harlow went into this soul sample heavy soundscape, and it was a nice change of pace in like comparison to something like a Come Home the Kids Miss You. And in terms of some of the best beats on here, I think that They Don't Love It is such a wholesome beat. You have sort of this mix of this soul sample mixed in with these banging trap drums, and I feel like that was the perfect backdrop for someone like Jack on that song.
Yeah, even Common Ground for me, the intro song had a really nice sample flip behind it, and I like the sample choices, to be honest with you. Even something like Blame on Me that was produced by Hollywood Cole, Boy Wonder, Azul Greyhawken, and Angel Lopez. It was nice because you have these slow tempo drums coming through, and then you get like the skip on like the background vocals like at certain points within the track, and it makes a really nice almost eerie and like nocturnal soundscape for Jack Harlow to really just pour it out and like have a good time with his writing.
Yeah.
So I do like those types of cuts as well.
But again, you have like one or two beats, I would say, that weren't that great when you're looking at something like Gang Gang Gang, once again, which is obviously the worst song on this album. You have this sort of distorted, creepy vocal sample that just repeats gang, 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 and it plays all throughout the song.
Yeah, and apparently they were trying to have that production connect to the content matter where, of course, Jack Harlow was talking about friends in the past that had gone down wrong roads, and then the beat was supposed to sort of emulate that and have some sort of connection, but it really does just fall flat, and you're like, wow, this is really creepy to a certain extent.
Yeah, but Hollywood Cole did a great job. So did Boy Wonder on Blame on Me. I love the vocal chops. I love the eeriness of that production as well, and those kick drums were hitting hard. So there's a few standouts, and I will say this. I feel like the production is one note, but it's not a bad thing. I think it's cool to see that he remained and stuck to a consistent sound for the whole duration of the album, and that's something that I have to, applaud him for. So
absolutely.
I think it was good, the production overall.
The production was good. Some people in the live album reaction were saying that, hey, I feel like almost every song is the same, and I maybe kind of saw it yesterday after first listen, but the more and more listens that I have given this album, I could find myself distinguishing production from production, and even something like Denver. There's a beautiful like arrangement with like the guitar strings also mixed in with that sample in the back. I really did enjoy it. But let's go on to the replay value. So no features obviously for today's review. This is a featureless track list. But how do you feel about the replay value? Because I do like Jack Harlow's music. I will put it in rotation when I do feel like it's merited, and I'm like, fuck, like I want to go back to this. And I do have that sentiment with this album. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I think the length definitely is a good sort of point of reference of being like, you know what, it's short. I can get through it really quickly. I'll throw it on. But in terms of what songs I'm actually going to be taking out of it, because I don't see myself revisiting it as a whole all that much, I would go with They Don't Love It, Is That It, Denver, and It Can Be. So like 4 out of 10.
I would go with Blame on Me. I would go with Denver. I would go with Is That It. I would go on with Ambitious as well. And the only real skip I have on this would probably be No Enhancers, and I would also say Gang, Gang, Gang. Those are like, realistically, I think throughout the album, what's cool is that you really only have 2 misses. And like, that's what I liked about it is that, hey, fuck yeah. Like, I'll take 8 songs out of an EP and go back to them. And
you
like,
have
really,
8 songs you're going to revisit?
Well, like, if I'm going to listen to 5 to 6, I might as well just go back to like everything and like just go through it. But the only real skips I have for this track list are No Enhancer and Gang, Gang, Gang.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of other songs that are just a bit more mediocre. Like there's some fire songs, but there's also missing bangers on this thing, which I get it. It wasn't the approach with this album, but I think it would have been cool to see him have that rap-centric album, but also include some anthemic stuff like a Tyler Hero or like a Nail Tech. I feel like a combination of the introspective shit with the bangers would have made for the best possible Jack Harlow rap album, but
I like the strip back approach, though. I'm gonna say
cool.
that.
It's cool. It's different.
It's really nice. And honestly, like, salute to Jack, because people were asking for this album for a minute, and I do feel like he did a good job on it. And it is worth a listen. Absolutely. Like, have fun with the track list. So I think the replay value is good. Could we say that?
It is definitely good. Yeah.
Absolutely. So listen, overall thoughts on the album. I think that this was a good album. I do have to say that I think this is a nice change of pace for Jack, and I do feel like he has more of a control and grasp on his music right now, more than I felt like after Come Home the Kids Miss You, where I really didn't enjoy it whatsoever. Like, this is kind of the Jack Harlow I wanted to see again. So salute to you, Jack. Honestly, thank you for delivering this.
And he gave us like a concise 10-song rap album that felt focused from beginning to end. And I do like the intention and just sort of the idea that he had to tackle this, of giving you a real inside look of Jack Harlow behind all the glitz and glam, and just really like the life that he's living and all of the sort of I would say the struggles that he's going through as an artist right now. So it was cool to see the content matter, the progression, the maturity. Overall, I do feel like a lot of the tones and a lot of the rhythms that he's attacking weren't really all that lively. And again, that goes down to just his approach and him wanting to be laid back and mellow. That was all right, but it wasn't enough to keep me engaged throughout. Even songs that just ran like 2 minutes long at certain times, I felt myself kind of getting bored. So some songs do feel like a snooze fest, but the production keeps you up. It keeps you sort of going through the motions. Decent album. I think it's maybe Jack Harlow's second best album. Right after, that's what they all say. Definitely a step up off of his previous release, but we'll see what Jack has for us the next time around. But guys, let us know down in the comments, what did you think of this album? What would you rate it based on our grading system? And as we mentioned at the beginning, if you guys do want to see our full live album reaction to Jackman, check out the link in our description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.